When I told people that I was thinking of doing a flourless chocolate cake for Tom's table, I got the same reaction from everyone. How can you have a cake without flour? Well, step over to the stove and I'll show you how you can. So you start with a pound of butter and you have to melt it. I have already melted it beforehand. I'm sure you don't want to stand there and watch me melt butter. So I have a pound of melted butter and I have 2 pounds of chocolate. I used chocolate chips. They're perfectly fine. So you just pour the melted butter, let's do it this way so you can see. Melted butter into the chocolate chips. It's still warm from being melted, and the heat from the warm butter will melt the chocolate. Chocolate is a little bit on the sensitive side and it can burn easily, and if you just use the gentle heat from the melted butter, it will be enough to melt the chocolate without burning it. Okay, so I have 2 pounds of semi-sweet chocolate chips, and I've just added a pound of melted butter. I'm swirling them together. Make sure the butter is unsalted. It doesn't matter if you use expensive gourmet chocolate or store-bought chocolate chips. The result is going to be spectacular either way. I'm just continuing to do this until everything is smooth and homogenized. If you find that you need to, you can just place this on the stove to add a little bit more heat to make sure that the chocolate chips continue to melt. Okay, the butter and the chocolate are melted together, and doesn't that look absolutely luscious? This is what you want it to look like. The next step will be to warm up the eggs and incorporate that. It seems as though I've got a rather large bowl here, but once we add the next ingredient, you'll see why I've chosen an enormous bowl, and I hope that you have an enormous bowl too, because you're really going to need one for the next step. I've cracked a dozen eggs into this bowl. A dozen eggs, that's your next ingredient. And what I'm going to do is place them over this pan of simmering water, and I'm going to mix them together with my hand and continue mixing over the water until the eggs reach 100 degrees blood temperature. And the reason I'm using my hand is because if you put your fingers into the eggs and they feel cold, they're not quite up to temperature. If you put your fingers in and you don't feel anything, it's blood temperature. It's the exact temperature that you need. So continue just moving them around over the simmering water until they don't register any temperature on your fingers. It's rather warm here, and so I know this procedure isn't going to take very long at all. And once they reach 100 degrees, we'll bring them over to the KitchenAid and we'll whip them up to a froth. So what do we have? We have 12 eggs that have been heated up to 100 degrees. I took them off the simmering water, wet the bottom of the bowl because it'll be wet, and put them in the bowl of the KitchenAid. I think I spent half of my life at the KitchenAid. Use the whisk attachment, and these will have to be whipped up on a pretty high speed until they come up and reach the very top of the bowl. That will take about at least 5 minutes or so. And you can take a champagne break along with me while these are whipping up. Let's okay, I've started it. We'll check in every now and then on the progress of the whipped eggs. The top of the bowl yet, but I've been enjoying my champagne. I think maybe I should get a product endorsement from somebody. We've reached the top of the bowl. If I don't shut this off pretty soon, we're going to have a mess all over the bench. So let me shut this off and we'll add this to the chocolate butter. Alright, I have my 12 egg whites heated to 100 and whipped to the top of the bowl, and I'm just pouring it into the big bowl with the 2 pounds of chocolate and 1 pound of butter melted and combined. This is a very light mixture, pouring it into a very heavy mixture, and what I'm going to do is fold the two of them in together. I'm going to lose a little bit of the volume on the eggs, but it still will be enough. It still will be enough, and you're going to have an absolutely delicious cake. And that's really all there is just 3 ingredients: the semi-sweet chocolate, the unsalted butter, and the whipped eggs. There isn't any sugar that's been added. We're just using the sugar that's in the chocolate, and it will be enough. You're going to have an absolutely intense chocolate experience with this. I'm going to continue folding this. It's going to take a little bit of time because I've got the heavy mixture at the bottom of the bowl, and I'm trying to incorporate it into the light mixture that's at the top. So I'm going to continue doing this, and I'll be back in a minute when it's more homogenized. Still working at it. It's starting to come together. It's going to take a little bit more elbow grease. And when it's ready, I'll be back and show it to you. And that's it. Look at it. Look how wonderful. Next we'll prepare the pan, put it in there, and we'll get it into the oven. Alright, I have a 9-inch springform pan. It's got a hinge here and the bottom comes out. Bottom goes up, bottom goes down. Have it this way when you fit it into the bottom. That way when you go to remove the cake, you don't have to deal with a lip. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to line this with baking parchment. I buy these big sheets of baking parchment from Cake Works on Whitney Avenue in Hampton. You can probably go to any bakery and ask them if they will give you a couple of sheets, and they probably will. You can also buy baking parchment in rolls in the supermarket, but it's all curled and wrapped around a core. It's not going to lay flat. You can use it, but it's going to take a little bit more effort. You're going to have to fight with it. I've trimmed this to fit into the bottom of the pan, and then I've cut strips, and I'll put these around the inside of the pan. It'll make getting this cake out a lot easier because nothing sticks to baking parchment. A couple of strips here around the side and the round circle in the bottom. We have our cake batter all ready, and so I can just pour that into the pan. Flourless chocolate cake batter, a pound of butter melted with 2 pounds of chocolate, 12 eggs whipped up and folded in. We have a 9-inch springform pan lined with baking parchment, and we're putting everything together, and we'll put it in the oven. This is something really, really rich and wonderful. Okay, it all goes in, and just give it a quick smoothing out, and the next thing we'll do is put it in the oven. It doesn't take very long to bake, so meet me over at the oven. Flourless chocolate cake. It's rather unusual, and it's a little tricky to prepare, but very easy and not a lot of ingredients. We have the batter in the pan, and what we're going to have to do is put it in a 425 degree oven. And what we're going to do when we bake this is we're going to put it inside another pan, and then we're going to add a water bath. We're going to bake it in a water bath. Sometimes people make cheesecake, and that's the way that cheesecakes are usually baked too. So I'm putting this in the oven, and I'll add the water after it's on the shelf. It'll be a lot easier to handle. And I have this tea kettle full of water. I've heated it up, and I'll just pour this into the larger pan. I'm pouring this hot water into the larger pan until it comes up about halfway on the cake pan, and that'll take probably the entire kettle of water, which I've heated up a little bit. The whole thing goes into a 425 degree oven for 5 minutes. So I'll set the oven timer alarm for 5 minutes, and I'll see you then, and I'll show you what we do next. Champagne dance party while we're waiting for the cake in the oven. There's really nothing else to do but just dance around the hot kitchen and drink some cheap champagne. All right, the timer is about to go off. It signals 5 minutes. 5 minutes in the oven at 425 degrees in a water bath. And when that timer goes off, what we're going to do is cover the cake with foil and give it 10 more minutes. And that's really all it takes, is just 15 minutes. There we go. I've got my foil all ready. And all you need to do is cover the top of the cake pan with foil. I don't know if you can see into this oven. Pretty hellishly hot. All right, shut it off. Reset the timer to 10 minutes. And when 10 minutes comes, we'll just remove it from the oven. Taking a long time. All right. 10 minutes are up. The cake has been in the oven for as long as it's going to be in. It's going to look a little odd when I take it out of the oven, but that's okay. I'm going to take it out of the oven anyway. First thing I'm going to do is take the foil off of it, because I don't need that anymore. I've got a pan that's incredibly hot, and it's filled with incredibly hot water. And I've got the cake inside the water bath. And I just want to take this cake out of the water bath and let it cool to room temperature. It's going to be very jiggly. Don't worry about that. That's the way it's supposed to be. And just let it cool to room temperature and then chill it overnight. The cake needs a couple of days to make. So I've already got another cake that I've made, and we'll go over to the other side of the bench and I'll show you how to finish it off. To finish off the flourless chocolate cake, we have to make a very rich chocolate buttercream. I have a half a pound of unsalted butter in this bowl, and I'm going to whip it up and then add some cocoa powder and powdered sugar. Wish I had my paddle attachment, but I think the whisk is going to work just fine. Just to break it up like that, and then I have 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar and a half a cup of cocoa powder. I've sifted them because cocoa powder has a tendency to make to clump up, and it's really necessary to sift it. Powdered sugar, I think you might be able to get away with not sifting that, but as long as you're going to be sifting the cocoa powder, you might as well sift the powdered sugar in as well. You don't want lumps of unsweetened cocoa powder in your buttercream. All right, I've added that, and I'm just going to incorporate them on a low speed so that we don't all end up coated with cocoa powder. And then just whip it up until I have a nice, rich chocolate buttercream. I've been scraping and whipping up this buttercream, and I think it's ready. It looks very rich and delicious. It's certainly something that's dark enough to compete with that flourless chocolate cake that we've just made. What I'm going to do is take it out of this bowl and put it into a pastry bag, and then we'll take the cake out of the pan, garnish it, and finish it off. I have a very rich, very dark, chocolatey buttercream, and I'm going to use that to finish off the flourless chocolate cake, and then we'll garnish it, and best of all, we'll try it out. I have another cake that I made yesterday, and I've chilled it overnight. What you're going to do is release it from the springform pan and take away the baking parchment from the sides. And as you can see, it was jiggly when we took it out of the oven, but it's perfectly fine now. I know that I usually take have something called Thom's Craft Corner, and I take cardboard cake boards and cover them with a doily or with foil. But I didn't do that today. I have this wonderful dessert plate, and I'm just going to flip it onto there and remove this springform pan and remove the parchment paper on the bottom, and you've got a beautiful surface. Although you want to smooth the top of the cake off before you bake it, it doesn't really matter that it's not perfect, because the bottom of the cake becomes the top in the end. We've got our buttercream that we just made, and what we're going to do is put a nice little border around the top of the cake and around the bottom of the cake. I'll do the same, the top and the bottom at the same time. It's a little warm in here, so this is a little shiny, but I think it's working very nicely. So just do a shell border, simple shell border around the top and around the bottom, and then we'll have a nice little garnish to put on there afterward. Almost done, the top, there we are, and the bottom. And to garnish it, I'll put a little rosette at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10, 11, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8. And just to show how rich the cake is, we'll put some gold coins on it. I've got some wonderful little chocolate Washington quarters. All right, we have George Washington quarters, and then we'll take these wonderful large Kennedy half dollars and we'll put them on too. And this shows you just how rich the cake is, that we garnish it with gold coins. And there you have it, flourless chocolate cake, a cake made without any flour at all. Amazing. If you'd like, you can use all Washington quarters or all Kennedy half dollars, or you can mix it up the way that I have. The next thing we'll do is we'll cut it so we can see how it looks and tastes. All right, let's slice it. I've got my knife already poised. Apparently I cannot wait to try this. Flourless chocolate cake. Probably would be a good idea to have a flat platter so the cake doesn't sink in the middle, and I'm going to wipe this off in between cuts so we get a nice, pretty, clean cut. We'll cut this in the middle here. And let's plate up a piece for me. All right, let me cut this final piece. I'm going to put it on this plate. I have these wonderful little dessert plates that say, "Happily Dying of Chocolate." And they were given to me by a dear cousin, and I think they're probably very appropriate considering the dessert that I've just made. I've done a lot of talking, I've done a lot of baking, now it's time to do a lot of tasting. This is absolutely delicious. A rich chocolate dream. I made this for a wedding cake once, and a woman came up to me at the reception and she actually bowed to me. Thanks for watching Thom's Table. Don't forget to go on Facebook, put a like on Thom's Table. The recipe will be there, along with a lot of other recipes.